I was scrolling through my phone when I saw it. Just one message, one little notification that made my heart stop. And in that instant, I knew everything I thought I had, everything I trusted, was gone. But before I tell you what that message said, you need to understand who they were to me, because that's what made it all so much worse. I met Mark in high school, the kind of guy that seems too good to be true. Tall, funny, protective, with this grin that made every bad day vanish. We were inseparable 10 years together, from awkward teenage dates to building a home, a life, a marriage that everyone called perfect. People didn't just envy us, they trusted us as the example of what love should look like. We weren't just lovers, we were best friends. We knew each other's deepest fears, dreams, and secrets. And the thing is, I never doubted him, not once. I never even thought betrayal was a word that applied to us. Then there was Sarah, my Sarah. She wasn't just a friend, she was family. She'd been with me through every heartbreak, every triumph. She was my maid of honor, the one who helped me plan my wedding, the one I called when Mark forgot our anniversary. Not that he ever did, but still, she was funny, loyal, warm, the kind of person you could spill your entire soul to and never worry about being judged. She wasn't just someone I liked, she was someone I trusted with my life. And for years, I believed she would always be in my corner. At first it was tiny things, almost laughable. Sarah would joke a little too comfortably with Mark during dinner, laughing at jokes I didn't get. Sometimes their glances lingered just a second too long, like they were sharing a private joke. One evening, she came over unannounced. I was cooking, and Mark disappeared into the kitchen with her. They laughed and leaned close, whispering about something I couldn't hear. I laughed it off because who would ever suspect my best friend and my husband? Then came the nights I'd noticed subtle changes. Mark staying late at work again. Sarah suddenly talking about problems she needed advice on. Things that just didn't add up. But I pushed it down. I told myself I was imagining it, because, honestly, you don't suspect your best friend. You don't think your soulmate could betray you. Here's the thing. Betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about trust. And when the people you love the most, your partner, your family, your read-or-die best friend, are the ones breaking that trust, it doesn't just hurt. It shatters you. Every laugh, every hug, every secret shared suddenly feels like a lie. And I was about to learn, in the cruelest way possible, just how deep that betrayal could go. I remember one night in particular. Sarah came over for wine. Mark was in the living room, and I was in the kitchen. I caught a glance between them, a look so fleeting that it almost didn't exist, but my stomach twisted anyway. It was their kind of glance that says more than words ever could. I ignored it. I had to, because ignoring that feeling is easier than confronting the truth, right? That's what I kept telling myself. But deep down, something inside me whispered, pay attention. Something's off. Something isn't right. Little did I know, that whisper was the first echo of a storm. I couldn't escape a storm that would leave me questioning everything about my life, my marriage, and the people I trusted most. And that's where it started, the first crack in the perfect life I thought I had. But the real nightmare, it didn't start with a glance or a joke. It started with the lies that came after. The subtle manipulation, the way they turned the world against me without me even realizing it. In the next part, I'll tell you exactly how I was made to feel like the crazy one, how my husband and my best friend started rewriting reality, and how I began to see the first signs of the betrayal that would destroy everything. You'll see why sometimes your instincts are screaming the truth while everyone else is blind to it. It started small. At first I chalked it up to coincidence, or maybe my imagination running wild. But then, the signs got impossible to ignore. Late nights at work, mysterious texts, whispered phone calls. They weren't just red flags anymore. They were screaming, and somehow both of them made me feel like I was the crazy one for even noticing. Mark started coming home later and later. Crazy deadlines. He said, just work stress, babe. And I believed him. After all, I trusted him. Sarah, while she suddenly had dating troubles of her own. She called me crying one night, leaning on Mark for advice. It seemed innocent to innocent, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every time they had a problem, it conveniently required them to lean on each other just a little too much. Then the little things started stacking up. Mark suddenly guarded his phone like it was made of gold. Passwords changed overnight. mysterious receipts for dinner dates. I hadn't been invited to clothes I didn't recognize in the laundry, and each time I asked, each time I brought it up, they laughed. Not in the joking way, in the "you're imagining things" way. But I tried talking to Mark first. "I've noticed some weird stuff," Kamitako, his response. Cold, dismissive. "You're being ridiculous. Sarah's like a sister to me. You're overthinking everything serious." Then I confronted Sarah. Her eyes. "I feel like maybe something's off." Her voice trembled like she was hurt. "I would never do that to you. I love you. You know that." And somehow, I believed them. For weeks. But my gut was screaming at me. That little voice in my head, the one you try to ignore because you don't want to see the truth, kept whispering, "They're lying, both of them, and you're standing right in the middle of it." The worst part wasn't even their lies. It was how expertly they made me doubt myself. Every suspicion I had became proof of my paranoia. Every question I asked was somehow controlling or jealous. Franz started to notice I was on edge, but Mark and Sarah had rehearsed the perfect story. I was stressed, insecure, maybe even imagining things, and suddenly I was alone in my own life. The people I trusted, the people I loved, they were rewriting reality, and I was the crazy one. I started losing sleep, reading less, watching them interact with each other, my stomach twisting in ways I didn't think possible. It wasn't just jealousy, it was terror. The terror of knowing that the people closest to you might be hiding something monstrous, and there was nothing you could do to prove it. Yet, every smile between them, every touch, every whispered word, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. And yet, I couldn't do anything. Not yet. Then came the night that made my blood run cold. I came home earlier than expected from a late shift, hoping maybe I could just surprise Mark with dinner. But what I walked in on changed everything. Mark and Sarah weren't alone. They were on the couch, phones buzzing with messages I couldn't hear. But the real shock, I saw a text notification pop up on her phone from me. "Stop worrying. She's starting to notice. LOL." She was talking about me to him while I was in the house. At that moment, the room went silent in my head. My hands shook so badly. I dropped the groceries. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. Because it wasn't just cheating anymore. It was a mockery, a full-blown game they were playing at my expense. And I'd been blind to it for months. And that's when it hit me. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was psychological, emotional, tolo. And the next step, I realized I needed to see it for myself. Truly see it, or I'd never believe it. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to confront them yet, not until I had evidence. Not until I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the people I loved most were capable of this. I started small, checking phones when I could, noting patterns in their behavior, retracing every suspicious interaction, and slowly, the picture started forming. I knew that soon, very soon, I'd have the proof I needed. And when that proof came, it wouldn't just break my heart, it would obliterate the illusion of everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and friendship. Because here's the thing, once you see the truth, there's no going back. And I was about to walk straight into the evidence, the moment that would make me wish I'd never trusted anyone in my life. If you're watching this story, tighten your blanket and hit the like button so YouTube understands you want the next chapter unlocked, and tell me in the comments, which beautiful country are you watching from? And what's the exact time there right now? I'll show you exactly how I discovered the full extent of their betrayal. You'll see the texts, the secret meetings, the laughter behind my back, and the instant I realized it wasn't just a fling. It was a carefully orchestrated double betrayal. This is where everything explodes. I still remember the exact moment I realized everything I'd been suspecting, and more. My hands were trembling as I unlocked Mark's phone, not because I wanted to invade his privacy, but because I needed to know the truth. I needed to see it with my own eyes. And what I found made my stomach drop like I had just fallen off a cliff. Because this wasn't just cheating, it was everything. Every trust I'd built, every secret I'd shared, thrown in the trash. For weeks, I had been tracking patterns. When Mark left the house, when Sarah needed advice, when they were suddenly texting nonstop, I memorized their schedules, their friends' names, even the little coffee spots they loved to go to. I waited for the perfect moment one evening when Mark said he'd be late at work and Sarah was out running errands. I came home early again, making sure the house was empty. My heart raced, my palms were sweaty, and every rational part of me screamed to stop, but I had to see it. I started with Mark's phone. A few swipes, a few taps, and there it was. Texts I shouldn't have seen. Can't wait to see you tonight. I love when we're alone like this. Don't tell her, I think she's starting to suspect. Keep it playful, I froze. My fingers shook. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. But that wasn't all. Deleted texts, photos from nights I got. He was working late with Sarah in my house, laughing, touching, whispering. I couldn't even recognize the people in the photos. They weren't the Mark and Sarah I'd known. They were strangers who had been wearing masks of friendship in my life then. I saw the real kicker, the texts between them mocking me. Sarah, she suspects something, lol. She's paranoid, as usual, Mark. I love how clueless she is. Can't wait for our next weekend alone. The realization hit me like a truck. They weren't just cheating, they were laughing at me. They'd been orchestrating this betrayal like some sick game. At that moment, I couldn't breathe. My body went cold. My hands shook so violently I dropped Mark's phone. I ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, and collapsed on the bed, burying my face in my hands. It wasn't just cheating, it was a betrayal by my best friend, Sarada. One person I'd trusted more than anyone had not only encouraged it, but mocked me. While it happened, the person I thought would be my safe harbor had turned into the storm itself. Every memory with her, every laugh, every secret shared, tainted. And Mark, my soulmate, my partner of 10 years. He had looked me in the eyes every day, pretending to love me while secretly building a parallel life with the woman who knew all my insecurities and weaknesses. It was a perfect, cruel double betrayal. I can't even describe the physical shock. My chest tightened. I felt nauseous. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab a glass of water. I started pacing the room, whispering to myself, no, this isn't real. This can't be real. But it was real. And every denial, every rationalization I had clung to for months, every time I told myself, maybe I'm imagining it, smashed into pieces. I remember standing in the hallway, staring at the closed bedroom door, shaking, thinking, I've never felt so betrayed in my life. I've never hated anyone more, and I've never felt so powerless. Until now. That night, I didn't confront them. I couldn't. Not yet. I knew they were ready to spin stories, deny everything, make me the villain again. I had to be smart, so I did what any desperate person would do. I started collecting evidence like a hawk. Screenshots, timestamps, deleted messages recovered, photos, even locations they tried to hide. I needed a case so airtight, so undeniable, that when the truth came out, they couldn't wriggle their way out. I also started planning my confrontation. Not just a fight, a moment that would leave them speechless, shamed, and exposed. Because if they were going to play a game with my heart, I was going to win the final round. But the real kicker, what I uncovered next, would blow my mind. It's something I never saw coming. Just when I thought I had the full story, there was one more secret they had been keeping. Something that would make everything even more devastating. I'll take you through the confrontation at the moment. They finally faced the consequences of their lies. You'll see the shock on their faces, the excuses, the silence, and the bitter truth of walking away from the people who destroyed your trust. Because sometimes discovering the truth is only the beginning. I spent days planning it, not out of spite, well, maybe a little, but because I knew this had to be perfect. I couldn't just yell or break down. I had to make them see the destruction they caused. So I waited for the perfect moment, a weekend when we had a family dinner. Planned everyone would be there, including Mark's parents, Sarah's closest friends, even my own. I wanted witnesses, I wanted eyes on them when the truth came out, and I wanted them to feel the weight of every lie they'd ever told me. I had everything ready. Screenshots of every incriminating text, photos of them together, photos they thought I would never find, a list of all the lies, arranged chronologically, so no one could deny anything. I rehearsed in my head how it would go down. I imagined the shock, the excuses, the humiliation, And yet, deep down, a small part of me still hoped for remorse. I knew better. People like this don't feel guilt, they feel panic when caught. The night arrived, everyone gathered around the table, the clinking of silverware and small talk masking the tension I could barely contain. Mark and Sarah were laughing like nothing was wrong, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I waited until the perfect moment, the middle of dinner, when everyone's attention was on us, and then I spoke. Mark, Sarah, Ikitsa, time we had an honest conversation. I said, my voice steady, calm, but cold. The laughter died instantly. Conversations paused mid-sentence, and just like that, the room became mine. I pulled out my phone, screenshots, photos, texts, everything. I went through them one by one, slow enough for everyone to follow, but fast enough that Mark and Sarah couldn't interrupt. Can't wait to see you tonight. I love when we're alone like this. Don't tell her. She suspects something, lol. She's paranoid as usual. I read every message aloud. I showed every photo. I traced every lie back to its source. Every innocent coincidence I had ignored. Every late night excuse laid bare for the world to see. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Mark's face went pale. I mean pale, the kind of pale that comes when someone knows they've been caught red-handed. Sarah froze, mid-bite, fork suspended in the air, eyes wide like a deer in headlights. Mark started, but the words faltered. Nothing he could say would change the mountain of evidence sitting in front of him. Sarah's friends looked between us, mouths open. My family stared, some shocked, some angry, some trying to comprehend how someone could betray so completely. Silence was delicious. And of course, they tried. Mark's attempt. It's not what it looks like. I mean, It was just a joke, okay? You're overreacting, Sarah's. You don't understand. We weren't hurting anyone. I stopped listening because there was no saving them. No excuse would ever fix what they'd done. Their words sounded small, pathetic, like children caught stealing cookies when they had actually destroyed a decade of trust and friendship. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I let myself feel pure, unfiltered rage and satisfaction. I stood up, looked each of them in the eyes, and said, I trusted both of you more than anyone else in this world, and you chose to betray me, and now everyone knows who you really are. I left the table. I walked out of the house, past their frozen faces, past the whispers and gasps, past the shattered illusion of a perfect life. Every step felt lighter, freer, more satisfying than anything I could have imagined, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't yelling or hitching, it's walking away while they stand there, exposed, helpless, and completely humiliated. That night, Mark and Sarah tried to salvage whatever they could, texts, phone calls, apologies, but nothing worked. By the next morning, the truth had spread through our social circle. Friends took sides, family whispered behind their backs, and suddenly, the carefully constructed fantasy they had built crumbled. I didn't have to do anything more. Karma was already at work, but that's only the beginning. You'll see how their life unraveled completely, how justice, sweet, satisfying, unavoidable justice was served, and how I transformed from a betrayed, heartbroken mess into someone stronger, happier, and completely free. And trust me, you'll love what happened to them next. The morning after the confrontation, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. It was strange, liberating. The anger had dulled into clarity. For the first time in a long time, I realized this wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of a new life. Mark and Sarah, they were still reeling. They tried to call, text, apologize, even manipulate, but nothing could undo what had been revealed. The truth was out. And this time, the world was watching. The divorce was messy, but I made sure it was clean. Legally, financially, emotionally, I covered my bases. Friends who had been on the fence quickly picked sides once the evidence came out. Most of Mark's friends turned away, embarrassed by how thoroughly he had betrayed me, thought Sarah. She lost almost all credibility in our circle. People who had once admired her loyalty suddenly saw her for what she really was. The whispers followed her everywhere. She was part of it. She laughed while she betrayed her best friend. And that was just the beginning. I didn't have to do anything to hurt them. Kama was far more creative than I ever could be. Mark's perfect career took a hit when his colleagues heard about his personal drama. His reputation as a dependable, trustworthy man gone. Every attempt to salvage his social standing was met with skepticism because once someone shows their true colors, trust is nearly impossible to rebuild. Sarah's social circle fractured too. Friends she had leaned on for years suddenly stopped answering her calls. Invitations disappeared. Birthday parties, gatherings, weekends away, all gone. She realized too late that betraying someone she called family comes with consequences that no apology can fix. It wasn't a slow burn. It was instantaneous, and it felt unbelievably satisfying. Meanwhile, my life, I rebuilt it on my terms. I started prioritizing myself, my health, and my happiness. I traveled, I explored passions I had neglected while trying to maintain a perfect marriage. I surrounded myself with people who valued me, respected me, and truly loved me, not people who thrived on manipulation and betrayal. And I swear, every time I think about that old life, I don't feel pain anymore. I feel pride. Pride for having survived, for having seen the truth, and for having the strength to walk away when most would have crumbled. I became a version of myself that Mark and Sarah could never touch. A stronger, freer, unapologetically happy me. But just when I thought I had closure, I discovered one more layer of their lies. Sarah had tried to secretly keep a financial stake in a business. We had started together years ago, something I had forgotten existed. When I confronted her about it, her eyes went wide. I didn't think you'd ever notice, she stammered. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cry. I just reclaimed it. Every penny, every share. And just like that, she realized that her attempts to manipulate me financially as well as emotionally were worthless. The perfect ending, watching them scramble and realize they had underestimated me completely. That last little piece of revenge, quiet, methodical, and completely satisfying, was mine. The biggest lesson: you can't control other people's actions, but you can control your response. Betrayal hurts. It destroys. It can leave you questioning your worth, your judgment, even your sanity, but it doesn't have to define you. Walking away, reclaiming your life, and finding happiness on your own terms, that's the ultimate revenge, and it's sweeter than any confrontation, any argument, or any public humiliation could ever be. But Mark and Sarah lost what mattered most: trust, respect, friendship, and the illusion of a perfect life. I gained something far more valuable: freedom, peace, and a reminder that I am stronger than anyone who tries to break me. Revenge doesn't start with fury, it starts with precision. People always imagine revenge like a movie montage: loud, explosive, fast. But the real kind is quiet at first. Revenge is planning, it's patience, it's letting the other person think the storm passed while you check wind speed. If the story ended there, it would have been clean. Painful, sure, but clean. She cheated, I collected myself, I got my closure, and I moved on. But the universe, it doesn't do clean. It is messy. It is poetic. It is karmic. 2 months later, I get a text from an unknown number. Hey, can we talk? It was followed by one of those awkward 3D OT bubbles that kept appearing and disappearing like someone pacing in front of a door they couldn't knock on. Then finally, it's Jenna. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't stutter. You know what I felt? Curiosity. Not longing, not pain, just curiosity, like watching a bug wander toward a ceiling fan. 5 minutes later, he cheated on me. There it was. Karma doesn't make appointments, it just shows up early sometimes. But the real twist, it wasn't that Connor cheated on her. It was who he cheated with. Remember Sarah, the best friend turned betrayal Costa, the one who played therapist while secretly auditioning as mistress, the one who said, "I'd never do that to you." Yeah. Apparently, after I left the apartment, the two of them tried to make their illicit fantasy a real-life relationship. But reality doesn't flirt back. Bills, chores, family judgment, all that mundane stuff cheaters never consider, it suffocated them. Sarah swooped in at Jenna's lowest, told her she deserved. Baro told her Carno didn't see her. Told her she was valid and worthy and strong. Cheaters attract cheaters, like wounds attract salt, while Jenna's texting me about heartbreak. I'm scrolling through Sarah's Instagram, and there it is, a photo with no caption, taken on Jenna's balcony, wearing Jenna's sweater, holding a mug with Jenna's initials on it. Poetic, diabolical, beautiful. The math writes itself. Sarah wanted the relationship she sabotaged. Betrayal wasn't a means, it was an appetite. But here's the kicker. Jenna didn't text me for sympathy. She texted me for help. She wanted me to say, I'm sorry and you didn't deserve that and let's talk. She wanted to rewind the narrative before she detonated our life. She wanted comfort from the person she damaged. That's not closure. That's recycling. So I gave her 4 words. You chose chaos. She didn't reply at first. Hours passed. Then do you hate me? Now that one sat heavy. Not because I struggled with the answer, but because it showed she was still living where the story started while I'd already moved on. So I wrote, no, I don't hate you. Hating you would mean you still take up space in my life. And that was it. That was the real victory. Not the buyout, not the exposure, not the strategic revenge. It was the lack of emotional rent she had left to collect. And since life loves an encore, I ran into Connor 3 weeks later at a Trader Joe's. He looked awful. Hair messy, clothes wrinkled, and that wild-eyed look people get when their universe collapses mid-spin. He saw me first. He froze. Then he opened with, hey man. My laugh cut him off. We're not doing the hey man thing. He nodded. No defense. No flirting with denial. Then he said something I never expected. You were right about everything. The line hit harder than any apology, because for the first time, he wasn't performing. He wasn't deflecting. He wasn't making himself the wounded hero. He was just admitting the truth. Then he added, she said you're doing really well. I shrugged. I am. He stared for a second, then said, I don't know how you moved on so fast. I wanted to say, because I didn't lie to myself about what happened, but instead I just said, I didn't stay in the fire. He nodded again, like a man who'd finally learned what flames feel like without a filter. I walked out with my groceries and didn't look back. Here's the part people misunderstand about betrayal. It doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. It strips away illusions about love, loyalty, friendship, and yourself. It shows you what you'll tolerate and what you won't. It shows you who you were and who you refuse to be again. And the final twist, I'm not alone anymore. Not with another relationship that's way down the road, but with something better, people, real ones. Friends who don't smile with hidden agendas. A family that doesn't disappear when things get ugly. A version of myself that isn't apologizing for being inconveniently intuitive. So, if you're listening to this, wondering if healing is possible, it is. Not instantly, not gracefully, but definitely. If you were me, tell me honestly in the comments, would you have confronted them earlier? Or watched it burn longer for revenge? And here's my final question, one that actually splits audiences right down the middle. Once a friend betrays you like that, do you think forgiveness is even on the table, or is that bridge torched forever? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. And if you want more real stories like this one, darker, messier, more twisted, make sure to subscribe, because the next one makes this one look tame. Because the truth is, real life writes better drama than fiction.